Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cloud Show. This is going to be a really interesting conversation today about a topic which is near and dear to my heart. It is about authentication, and it's going to be about access control, which is such an important topic. And we are going to talk about this topic today together with an expert on this matter. Her name is Jennifer Holland. Well, hello there. Welcome to the Cloud Show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's nice to see you. And I think we need to do a little bit of a who's who here, so we can tell sort of the audience, who are you and why do you know anything about access control?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Jennifer. I live in Scotland. And I'm a student. I am in between 2 degrees at the moment. So I have just wrapped up my undergraduate degree. I was studying digital security and digital forensics at Glasgow Caledonian University. So that was 4 years. And I just wrapped that up, finished all my exams. I will graduate in July. And then in September, I will be starting my master's degree at University of Strathclyde. And I will be studying advanced computer science with artificial intelligence, which I think there is not a better time in the world to be studying these kind of topics, cybersecurity, AI, all that kind of stuff. It's crazy how
I would agree.
Yeah, how quick it all progresses.
Yeah, and so it's summertime up there now in Scotland. And I have never been. I'm going to have to come and visit.
Yeah, don't come now though, because it's like pouring. You wouldn't know it was summer because the weather is horrible.
Okay, fine. All right. Well, at some point, anyway. At some point, I will go up and visit, and maybe visit. I don't know, a few distilleries, as you do.
We have lots of them.
Lots of them, and nature, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Brilliant. So, as a student of cybersecurity and security concepts and things like that, I definitely agree with you that now is the time to study this, because I guess and like look at the world, right? Look at wars going on and hackers trying to attack everything all the time. So I guess you have your sort of career set before you.
Yeah, that's the thing. So many of the wars nowadays, it's an on the ground war and also a cyber war. You know, it's not just about who can shoot the most guns, it's who can take down a country's infrastructure and all that kind of thing. So it's so important.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, in terms of data centers and the cloud data centers, at one point we were, I mean, it's wrong to say we were laughing about it, but we were saying that a good attack would be to put a missile into a data center and blow it up. Right, that would be a way to attack. And actually, nowadays, data centers are physically built into smaller units, so even that sort of attack couldn't really happen. But that's physical security. That's something else. You're about the digital security.
Yes. I am.
So authentication and access control being so central to everything that we do. Let's get into it. Why is this such an important area?
So I think when we start talking about cloud security, one of the most important things to look at to start with is the shared responsibility model. So with cloud, there are some things that the cloud provider is responsible for and some things that you as the user are responsible for. And this carries over into security. So the cloud provider is responsible for the actual physical computers and networks. You are responsible for things like the security of the user data, who can access these things, identity control. So that's why you need to be aware that that is not something in most cases that the cloud provider is going to take care of. That's a you problem.
That's a you problem. All right. So this you problem here. How do you set up for users to be able to log in and do what they need to do, but it shouldn't be like too complicated to do so. Like this balance between is it secure, and is it, and can we even use this security? Is it usable?
Yeah, that's something that has been getting more common, and it's well, not it's frustrating to see companies that go, we're going to be really secure, and then they make it something like you need to change your password every single week, because what people are going to do is they're going to get a password, any password, and they're just going to go like my password 1, my password 2, my password 3, or they're just going to write it down. And
Yep.
then I don't know if you've seen, there's been quite a few things on the news in the last few years where people will be filming in big important places, and there'll be like a little sticky note on the back that will have someone's like Wi-Fi password or their like whatever password. And it's
Yep.
that kind of thing. You're like, do you not look and see what you're filming?
And that's the key, right? If it becomes too challenging for the users, the common users of a computer system to use it, to use the security, they're going to try to get around it. It should be empowering, not overpowering, right?
Yeah,
And
because if
so,
people think it's too complicated, they're just gonna be like, oh, well, I don't have the time. I'm a busy person. I don't have the time to be thinking of secure passwords. I'll just add numbers on the end or whatever. And that doesn't help, because you have things like brute force password attacks, which will, they have like dictionaries of breached passwords. And if you're just
yeah.
adding numbers onto the end, it just makes things so much easier for the attackers to work out what your password is.
For sure, for sure. That's not security at all. That's the
No.
first thing that they will try to break or find if
Mm.
they try to break your password. But passwords is one thing. I'm really liking multi-factor authentication. I'm using this one all the time to log into
Yeah.
things. So what's the next level up there? How does that work?
I think the way I've seen things going, certainly people seem to be using a lot more kind of like biometrics nowadays, which seems like something just totally sci-fi. Like that's in like movies, like you use your eye to scan into places, but that's a real thing that people use nowadays. It's crazy to think in the future. You see, I can't remember where it was, but there was the Amazon shop, I think, where you just could walk in and pick stuff up and then walk back out again, and it took your face and it was able to connect your face for payment. So although that's not passwords, it's
Yeah,
still like it's biometrics. It's being
it
able to
is.
know, and it just goes, oh, that's Magnus. I'll charge his bank account.
That's interesting. It
Yeah.
really is interesting. Kind of scary, but I like the
Yeah.
thinking. So what are some good advice in terms of setting up like a good authentication story then for your employees to give them something that they can use with and work with?
hmm So I think, first of all, let's talk about usernames, because everyone loves a good predictable username, especially hackers. Hackers love predictable usernames. And actually who is really bad for that is universities, because they have thousands of students. They don't have time to be giving you unique usernames for everything. So our emails are just like our names and then like a number on the end. And that's really easily, like, username enumeration is a step that I think people don't think about an awful lot. One of those things is like, if you can if you're trying to log in somewhere, for example, and the response that you get for a wrong username versus a wrong password is different, that then becomes a really easy way to enumerate usernames. And if you know the username, it becomes so much easier to get the password.
Right. So when somebody's trying to sign in and they don't get the username and the password right, you shouldn't tell them your username
Yeah,
is unknown. You should tell
yeah,
them, sorry, you couldn't log in, right?
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a big difference between those two.
Because it can be as easy as, if it's something that is having to be manually set up, it can be as easy as for one of them. So if it's the username that's wrong, it's whatever, and then there's a full stop at the end. And when it's the password that's wrong, you missed out the full stop. And that's the difference. And attackers will notice that difference and will absolutely capitalize on it.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. That's
So it's one of
whenever
those
I talk
things.
about this stuff, I get really scared. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess this is your life. You're used to this stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's really scary though, because like my mum, for example, my mum will not take QR codes. Someone tries to offer her a QR code and she's like, no, no, my daughter told me not to scan QR codes. They can be bad. So I can't take her anywhere. We go to like a restaurant. We go to a restaurant and it's like, oh, scan here for the menu. And my mum is like, nope, nah. And I'm like, it's okay. We can trust them. We can trust the restaurant. But yeah, everything can be manipulated these days into becoming scary in the world of cyber.
I guess, yeah, that's for sure. Which means that for us to being able to authenticate using ourselves or a device is a useful thing, because multi-factor. I don't know what's the number there. It's a massive number of security increase between having just a password and having a phone validation. Like almost all attack vectors, or the attack surface kind of goes away almost, not completely, of course, but really they can maybe break my password, but they actually have to have my phone, and that's going to be hard for them to have, right?
Definitely. Even some places will try to add an extra layer of security by adding in like a captcha. So like solve this captcha, and it's like the letters that are all messed up, but you can actually find that AI can solve those captchas really easily, and you can train them to be able to read it. So if you're doing like password attacks, you can just submit loads and loads of passwords, and the AI will be trained to be able to read the captchas. So
Are you saying that, does it mean that captcha as a thing will kind of go away because it's going to be pointless, or?
I think eventually, yeah, because I mean, that was something I actually did during the Try Hack Me advent of cyber at the end of 2023. One of the tasks on one of the days was, we're going to build something that can break captchas, and then you do a password attack.
Right. I might
So
need one of those, because sometimes those captchas are really hard.
they are.
I'll just get an
Because
AI to read it for me and be done with that problem.
yeah,
Click on all the images where there's a car, right, or when not.
yeah.
I can totally train them to do that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
definitely.
I haven't thought about that. That's a fun new sort of way to break the system. You can use the AI to just destroy all these captchas.
Yep. Be
Okay, that was
afraid.
annoying. Not afraid, but that was annoying. Like that was a thing that I thought was kind of working, but now I realize that it's not. It's becoming a thing in the past, really.
Yeah, I think eventually they'll probably find other ways to annoy you when you're trying to log in.
Yeah. So now we have authenticated, let's say. Okay, we're done with that. Now we need to ensure that we have proper access to the systems that we need to have access to. What are some do's and don'ts in this space of access control?
So I think with access control, you need to be employing the concept of least privilege, which is make sure any users, anyone doesn't have access to anything more than they actually need to have access for. One of the big problems with access control is privilege escalation. So there are two types of privilege escalation: horizontal privilege escalation and vertical privilege escalation. So yeah. So with horizontal privilege escalation, it's when, so for example, you're accessing not necessarily something that needs higher permissions, but it's not yours. So an example of horizontal privilege escalation would be me and you, Magnus. We are both regular people, regular users. I can access your resources. That's an example of horizontal privilege escalation.
Okay.
Vertical privilege escalation would be if you, Magnus, you're an admin and I'm a regular user and I can access your administration functions, or even just someone who isn't logged in being able to access resources that only people who are logged in should be able to access. That's another type
Right.
of horizontal privilege escalation or vertical privilege
Vertical,
escalation.
yes,
But
yes. Right.
yeah, so that kind of thing is really important. Obviously, for obvious reasons, you don't want people being able to access, not regular users being able to access admin functionality. One of the things that you can do to kind of try to mitigate this is mapping out your cloud. So the best way I can describe this is basically just as yourself going about the cloud, going about all of your resources, everything you have, and seeing what you can access as an admin, as a regular user, as someone who isn't logged in, whatever different kind of roles you have set up. You could have different ones depending what your business is. So
Yep.
if as an admin, you should probably be able to access most things or whatever. And then a regular user, what can they access? Can they access things they shouldn't be able to? Something a lot of people don't think about is, so maybe you've got some kind of admin functionality, and in the middle there is some kind of validation to make sure that this functionality can't be accessed. But can this regular user jump over the wall basically and go straight to the functionality, bypass the validation, and therefore access that resource without having to validate? That's something that you need to think about, looking at what can people who aren't logged in access. Can they go straight to things that they shouldn't be able to go straight to? All that kind of thing. It takes a while. It takes perseverance, but I think it's a very valid thing to take up your time to do that.
To map the sort of the access that you have to different things and figure out where can you have access and kind of secure the things that, or those avenues that you shouldn't be able to walk. You secure them one by one and make sure that things are in the right place. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, because so sort of this privilege escalation, you should be able to escalate your access more like when you need it, right? Like just in time activation, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you could also have that, although that's dangerous. You need to be very careful. That's where obviously the different types of access control come in. You have like your role-based access control, which is like this person has this role and the role is what has the permissions, or like the other types where it's every individual has specific permissions, which is obviously the really complicated way to do it, especially if you've got a really big business, but it's slightly more secure. Where the role-based access control or any access control can become a slight issue is if you have people who are leaving your company or going to different departments, because you need to have a good offboarding process to remove those
Right.
permissions. Because I think it's easy to just think of offboarding as when people leave the company, but if you have people who are moving to a different department, chances are they shouldn't have access to the resources of the department they were in before. And I think that can be quite easily forgotten because it's like, oh, do they still work for us? It's fine. It's not fine.
No, it's not fine at all. Now that I can see that can be a really sticky problem to figure out, and I've seen people having access to systems that have left the company many months ago, and their account still technically has access. Now, of course, that account may be disabled, and it should be disabled, but it's still having the ability to clean up old access is, of course, a key process as well.
Yeah. Very recently, Microsoft were hacked late 2023 to beginning of 2024 by a Russian advanced persistent threat. And the way they got in, they actually managed to get access to Microsoft's corporate Office 365. And it was through a legacy account that hadn't been shut down. And that was how they got in. So it's just like those things that you think it doesn't matter. It's just like one account. That one account can be your downfall and can be the way in for very persistent attackers.
I've heard that they can put up there's technically the ability to set up access control reviews these days as well, so that the manager of a system needs to go and check periodically who has access to this system and is that still accurate?
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, it's very useful. It's a handy thing. All right, brilliant. Well, I have very much enjoyed having a conversation with you today about authentication, about access control, and all kinds of things. It's been brilliant. I want to thank you so much for having been on the Cloud Show with me today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And audience, let's see you again next week for another episode of the Cloud Show.